poor man has grieved at the wrong gravestone. A man has grieved at the wrong gravestone over his daughter for 30 years due to a misplaced headstone. This is so sad. This poor guy. His name is George. Poor George. A council has apologized to George after they discovered that he'd been grieving for his daughter at the wrong grave for 30 years because of a misplaced headstone. George Salt's daughter Victoria died less than 2 days after being born in July 1988 and was buried at Southern Cemetery in Manchester. I assume this is England. Mr. Salt said he felt let down that he found out by being faced with an empty spot where the gravestone had been. That's a terrible sentence I just read. I don't know who wrote this, but someone who has no literary skills whatsoever and who probably shouldn't be allowed to write blogs or anything for that matter. Not even a postcard. Who writes postcards anymore anyways? Do they even sell those? Okay, so George says he felt let down, which is, I think, a very calm way to react to this. I would have been so angry that this happened. I would have sued this cemetery right away. I've been grieving at the wrong gravestone for 30 years. You're telling me now that my daughter's body's been moved. Can you be any more irresponsible, cemetery? That's your job, cemetery. It's your only job is to keep track of where the bodies are. That's the only thing you got to do, right? I mean, how hard is that? They don't get up and move around in the nighttime. Okay, it's pretty easy to make sure where they are all the time. You have a little, you have a map that you put the names on there. I don't know how you do it, but like it's easy, right? These things aren't getting up and moving around. They're not shifting around. It's not a game of Tetris in the cemetery. That was a strange old school reference. I hope you got it. Mr. Salt's been going to the grave twice each year for 30 years. This is sad. This is sad. The headstone had been moved, his daughter's headstone had been moved in error during the 1980s to a vacant plot. But the mistake was only discovered this year when cemetery workers checked the grave records and moved it to the correct place. I just wasn't told, he said. I feel so let down. When you go to a grave, you sit and talk and say what your troubles are, but the annoying thing is you're talking to a piece of ground where she isn't there. Oh my God, this is so sad he said that. But the thing is, you're talking to a piece of ground where she isn't there. This guy was talking to just a patch of grass and there was nobody there. So sad. I can't even believe this poor guy. Oh my God. Oh, the cemetery's like, our sincere apologies. They always have these empty apologies. Yeah, suck it, cemetery. Okay? This poor guy. You should pay for his therapy at this point. You should be sending him all the flowers that you have. All of them should be sent to him. You should take him out for steak dinner twice a year for all the years that he had been grieving at just a patch of grass where there was no daughter. Yeah, that's what you should do, cemetery. I'm not in charge of rules or laws or anything like that, so it's not really up to me what happens in this case, but if it was, that's what they would have to do. They would have to feed him a steak twice a year for 30 years. Terrible, terrible, terrible. And there ain't nothing funny about this. It's just, you can't trust anything these days. It's just, that's the lesson here. You really got to do your due diligence and your due homework. You think that a dead body's in the ground, right? You think that that's where your relative is? Well, you gotta check twice these days. Okay, you can't even trust these cemeteries. What kind of world are we living in?